Okay, good day, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you this morning. I am so excited. This is our very first sustainability webinar hosted by For Excellence Solutions. My name is Elaine Fischer, and I will be your host for today. So let's just quickly go through the agenda. So firstly, what we're going to do is I'm just going to introduce you to my co-host, Innocent. Innocent's got some internet problems, so if she's not here, we'll just continue without her. And then I'm going to introduce you to our guest speaker, Isha Mansingh from Imperial. We will run through what we're going to do today, and I'm going to show you the AirMeet software as well as Mentimeter. And then after that, I will talk about systemic transformations in organizations and why that is important. After that, Isha will present Imperial's sustainability strategy and the approach Imperial is following to transform their organization. And then there will be some time for questions from our participants. Welcome to all of you this morning, and we'll share some learnings as well. Okay, just a little bit more about myself. I completed my PhD in industrial engineering in 2020. My research topics was in sustainability, complex decision-making, and systems thinking, and I applied it to energy sustainability at a local level. I started to work at For Excellence Solutions in 2014. And I would really love to share my learnings from my research and to also apply that in industry. And that is part of why we are having this webinar this morning. Before I joined For Excellence, I was working in the mining industry for about 15 years. So I've got a lot of experience in mining as well. Okay, but that's enough about me. So Innocent is not with us anymore, but I'm sure she will join soon again. We all know that things are unpredictable and you never know what's going to happen with your technology on a day like this. But just a quick introduction. If Innocent joins us later, Innocent is one of our directors at For Excellence Solutions. She is also an entrepreneur, a director and founder of her own company, REML Environmental Services. And Innocent recently completed her MBA degree. And her topic was on sustainability for small, medium enterprises and how small, medium enterprises survive post a lockdown experience like we discovered last year. Okay. We just quickly want to share with you what For Excellence is all about. So For Excellence, we are a management consultancy firm. We've been in business since 2011, and our focus is on risk management. We did a lot of work in the safety space. We recently joined forces with Imperial to assist them with developing their strategy for the next 5 to 10 years for sustainability. And yes, I just quickly want to share with you a quick intro video of our company as well. Okay, I'm just going to stop my presentation and then Monica, my assistant, will share the video.
Elaine, you're on mute.
So thank you for that, Isha. Yes, while I'm sharing my screen, we are a group of competent, highly professional industrial engineers in our company. We've been working virtually now since 2011, basically. So we all work from home. And we've got industrial engineers all over South Africa. So yes, when COVID hit us last year, we could definitely just carry on with our work, but we are still learning every day of how to do all this work virtually as well. I see Innocent is with us now. Welcome, Innocent.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I hope everybody is welcomed, and I finally managed to join in virtually. I'll let you lead the way, Elaine. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Innocent. Okay, I just would like to introduce you to our guest speaker, Isha Mansingh. Isha is Executive Vice President for Corporate Affairs and Investor Relations at Imperial. Isha, you're really a phenomenal lady. Isha is the first and youngest female member of their executive committee. She's chairman of Imperial's first Global Women's Forum, and as you can see here on the presentation, she's acting as director and she's a member of many organizations and committees in South Africa. She's also been recognized as one of the top 100 women in business in the world by the Global Trade Chamber. Well done, Isha. And then Isha achieved a doctorate in humanitarianism from the Global International Alliance University. So she's also doing a lot of good work. So Isha, welcome. Just tell the audience, do you ever sleep?
Thanks, Dr. Elaine, and thanks for having me. And good morning, everyone. I think you make it sound a lot more glamorous than it really is. So thanks for that introduction. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Having two young kids, there was a time in my life when I hadn't actually slept, trying to juggle everything. But no, these days I always like to say that sleep is key to a healthy mind. So you make time for it, right? But also, I suppose when you love every bit of what you're doing, it doesn't feel like a chore. So I think that's what gets me through it.
Wow, well done. Sure. Yeah, I must say I didn't know you have kids as well. So wow, now I'm in awe. So well done with everything that you have achieved thus far.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to sharing our journey a little.
Oh, wonderful, great. Yes, Innocent, over to you.
Thank you. So I'd just like to thank everyone who actually registered for this webinar. It is really an honor that we have all of you with us today, especially a class of 350 master's students from Schema Business School. So this webinar, we know very well that it is part of your lectures today with Ms. Chantel Finter from Stellenbosch University. So everyone, please feel welcome. We hope you enjoy this journey with us.
So thank you, Innocent. Okay, yes, so what we aim with this webinar is we want this webinar to be a platform where industry can share best practices and learnings about the development and execution of their sustainability strategies. We honestly believe as an organization that if we want to move faster and implement sustainable solutions in the world, we need to start working together. This is not about IP or anything that we need to protect for ourselves. We need to work together and move faster to move to a better future. Unfortunately, Neil Franklin from AECI was also supposed to join this morning, but yes, Neil got COVID recently, so he's still at home recovering. And we're praying and hoping for Neil and his wife so that they are safe and they recover soon. And yes, what we'll do is we will give a dedicated session to Neil in the month of June so that Neil can also share his experience at AECI and their sustainability journey. We further would like this platform to be a platform where we can share the latest research on the topic of sustainability and the role it plays in society. Also, one of our next webinars in July will be, will feature Professor Josephine Musangu from the University of Stellenbosch, and she will share a systems approach for sustainability with us. And then finally, we would like you as our participants the opportunity to network, to connect with people from industry and then as well as from academics. So yes, that is what we are aiming with this. So as I've mentioned before, this is our very first webinar. Yes, so yeah, we hope we can maintain this and we hope you can learn from it. And if there's any one of the participants who would also like a slot in the webinar, you're more than welcome to contact us as well after the session.
Okay, Elaine, before you go on with other things, so maybe you can just take us through the ERMIT bit that we can have an understanding of how we can participate as well.
Okay, thank you, Innocent. Yes, so the software we're using today is AirMeet. I'm sure you've already discovered the emoji at the bottom of your page where you can leave your reactions. Thank you very much. Then here on the right-hand side, you've got your attendees. So if you click there, you can see all the attendees that is attending in today's session. The chat functionality, we're going to use it mainly. My colleague Monica will share specific information that you will need throughout the webinar session in the chat, but you are also more than welcome to share general comments in that. And then the final section here is your questions. So we will use that specifically at the end of the session after Isha's presentation, and we will use that for the question and answers session at the end. So yes, just for you, we're not going to take any verbal questions today, but we will use that. We'll voice over your questions, and then Isha or one of us will answer the questions. Okay. Okay, so firstly, what we would like to talk about is sustainability and why this is complex. So yeah, when we talk about sustainability, we say it is complex. And if you think about complex, what does that mean? So when we think about complexity, it's all about uncertainties and risk. When we plan for sustainability, we normally plan for the future. So it's normally 10 or 15 years in the future that we need to plan. Yes, and we all know that when you plan, you can't really plan. In today's day and age, it's almost impossible to plan for the future because of those many uncertainties. And I think what COVID let us all realize is that things can change overnight. The world can change overnight. And we need to be able to be resilient and to adapt to that. Also, one of the characteristics of complex problems or complex situations is that you have different stakeholders. And you all know that when you have more than one person in a room, you will have more than one opinion and perspective. So we need to consider those different perspectives in our decisions and in the complexity. When you think of a complex situation, think about a rope that's tangled. So to detangle that rope, you need to pull on the many strings, and you don't know where those strings are connected or going into. So that is what complexity is. It's a lot of interdependencies. It's a lot of aspects that you need to consider. And the problem is if you pull on the wrong string, then you make the knot tighter. So there's unintended consequences, and that's actually what you need to avoid. But there is some good news as well. With best practice methodologies, you can map those different interdependencies, and you can also understand it better. And when we understand complexity and the different aspects better, we can better manage the situation as well. Okay, so just as an example, think about your organization and you want to reduce your carbon footprint, and you decide to implement renewable energy technologies in the organization. So implementing those technologies and making the decision on which of the technologies to implement, that's actually the easy part. But to make sure the project is successful, you need to ask the right questions. You need to ask, what are the environmental impacts that you need to consider? What are the different perceptions of the stakeholders involved in this project? How will this project influence your community? What will be the unintended consequences, and how can we avoid that? Okay, so what we would like to introduce to you today is an approach for systemic transformation, specifically for sustainability. And that was also part of the research work that I did the last couple of years. Okay, so let's just start with the current situation. So what is happening in organizations? Organizations, they've got a improvement mindset of incremental improvement, and that results then in incremental improvement. So over time, what a company will do is they will follow a plan, do, check, act cycle. So what they will do with the planning is they will go and analyze what has been happening in the past, and then they will populate that into the future. So they would say, okay, this is what has happened in the past. These are the gaps, and these are the gaps that I need to improve. Then they will implement specific projects to improve those gaps. They will report and review on those projects to see what the progress is and if those projects are successful or not. And then year on year, they will continuously do this. Okay. This will bring them to a current future. And if you think about sustainability, a current sustainable future. When we follow this approach, it's based on internal perspectives. You focus on your current business model. The process is continuous and it results in stepwise improvement. Okay, so I've been working now for almost 20 years, and this approach definitely does work in organizations. Sorry, there's some feedback there. Yeah, it does work in organizations. In 2008, I was working in the titanium dioxide industry. And if it wasn't for this approach, we would have not made it through the 2008 recession. So as you all know, the resource prices plummeted, demand just went out of the door. But because we were implementing this continuous improvement cycle, we have been cutting our cost and improving our productivity over time, we could have stayed in business. So when times are getting tough, then this is the approach that will keep you in business. Okay, but just for sustainability, maybe we need to look at the future a little bit differently. So what if we ask ourselves, what would a transformed future look like? Okay, when we do this, we need to follow a different improvement cycle. And this improvement cycle is you need to explore what is possible and what will be possible futures. Then you need to design a new system that will bring you to that transformed future, and you will need to adapt and experiment. So in short, we call this the EADAS approach. This approach is a little bit different. With this approach, you need to understand complexity and what it's all about. You actually need to go and reflect and challenge your own mental models. And sometimes it's very difficult, but you need to go and unlearn what you've been thinking and what you've been believing for you to be able to transform. You also need to be comfortable to get outside perspectives and different viewpoints. And then you must go and sit down and, from a clean sheet design, go and redesign the system for this transformed future. And you need to do all of this with a future conscious mindset. That's what we mean with that is you need to accept that the future is uncertain and there will be things that you can't control, but you need to work through those with experimentation and adaptation to get to that future. Okay, so this is what we call systemic transformations. When we talk about the PDCA cycle or the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, the techniques that you can use there is techniques like your Six Sigma analysis, statistical analysis, strategy development. And then when you implement your EDAS cycle, this cycle is based on best practice methodologies from the fields of systems thinking, operational psychology, and decision analysis. So that will be the tools that we are using there as well. Okay, and at For Excellence, what we believe, it's not the one or the other. We actually want to get the synergies between these two approaches. So we will be using both these approaches when we facilitate the development of a strategy in organizations. Okay, so yes, I wish I could tell you more and go into more detail because I'm getting really excited about this. But I'm also very excited to hear what Isha has to say today. So Monica will post a link to a blog that I've just written. Please go and read the blog. And if you want more information on this approach, you're more than welcome to contact us as well.
Thank you, Elaine. That was a very informative session. But now, before we hand over to our guest speaker for a day, we would like to let all the attendees check into Mentimeter. So there are 3 ways to do that. The first one is either you can just use your phone, scan the QR code that's on the screen. And the second option, you can either just use the link there, www.menti.com, and use that, the GeoBubbedSJX. And then there's also a code that you need to put in. It's on the screen, 58461590. So the third option, which is not the one that we prefer, but you can, is to use the link that is provided in the chat. Monica will post it for us. Thank you. And then when you have opened Mentimeter, please consent and then click a thumbs up at the right bottom corner of the screen. So this questionnaires that you see there, we will come back to them after Isha's presentation. So Isha, would like to hand over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Innocent. Over to a very quick video about Imperial before I go into my presentation. Thank you.
Since the outset, Imperial people have been driven by a pioneering spirit and a vision for a better world. We serve as the gateway to Africa, connecting Africa and the world and improving people's lives with access to quality products and services. We are an integrated provider of market access and logistics solutions, among the top 30 logistics providers globally, and employing more than 25,000 employees in 26 countries. Our clients can depend on our extensive footprint to provide integrated end-to-end market access and logistics solutions in 5 key industries: healthcare, consumer, chemicals, industrial, and automotive. This is Imperial, beyond possibility.
Hey guys. Well, for those of you that weren't familiar with Imperial, hopefully that gives you a great sense of who we are. And for many of the students, hopefully once you've heard our very exciting ESG journey, that you'll be keen to join the business and share your expertise with us, soon and as we continue on this journey. So I'm going to very briefly take you through a few slides. A few years ago, sustainability had started to become top of mind or come to the fore for many businesses. But, the sustainability is called by many different words these days. And I think the latest buzzword is ESG, which is much broader than just the traditional sense of sustainability. So, the whole environmental, social, and governance aspects of a business. And I think I'm just going to start off, in addition to what Dr. Elaine referenced earlier around sustainability and the complexities around it. I think the way in which we should be thinking about sustainability or ESG, if we may, is that it's not just a nice to have anymore. It's not just, something that may give us an edge ahead of somebody else. It's not just something that we need to consider as a tick box approach or to win awards or to tick boxes with many ratings agencies. But in fact, from a business perspective, certainly sustainability and ESG is something that is critical, that has to be given top of mind attention as part of the business strategy, integrated into business practices, because it's what's going to result in that longer term value creation, not just for the business, but for all its key stakeholders too. And I just wanted to put that into context. And, as I go through my presentation, I'll share with you some of the key industry trends that is putting sustainability and ESG as top of mind. But certainly from Imperial's perspective, that's how we see it. And for us, ESG is going to be that factor that ultimately determines those businesses that are certainly struggling just for survival versus those that are going to be resilient and are going to create a sustainable future. And also one that is full of opportunity. So, Dr. Elaine rightfully pointed out that with complexities come risks, etc. But certainly with complexity comes a lot of opportunity. And I'm going to also take you through some of our thinking in terms of how ESG could also bring opportunity to a business and the impact that you have. And, really, it starts with purpose. And for many organizations, and I'm sure most of you know better than we do, that many businesses and organizations around the world that are seen at the forefront of ESG are businesses that have defined a purpose. And at Imperial, and as you saw at the video, just by the virtue of being a leading logistics business across the African continent and having a footprint in over 20 African countries, we take food and medication and other basic needs and services to people. So by virtue of who we are and what we do, we already contribute to making a difference in people's lives. So our purpose is simple, and it's something that unites our people every single day. And it's really connecting Africa and the world and improving people's lives with access to quality products and services. And with this purpose, this purpose for us as Imperial is what underpins our ESG aspirations. And it was with this purpose in mind that we really started to focus on prioritizing our ESG initiatives and looking at ESG within our business more holistically and in more of an integrated manner. And while we've come a very long way with a 17-year ESG or sustainability history, it was really up until we could define our purpose as a business that we started to think about ESG in a very different light. I'm not going to go into too much about who we are because you saw that in the video, but again, just to re-emphasize, for those of you that haven't been familiar with Imperial or Imperial Logistics, as you may know, it was previously a company called Imperial Holdings. In 2018, we unbundled the motor business, which included the likes of the Europe cars, the Midases of the world, and we retained the logistics assets, which span over 26 countries, largely in Africa. And we specialize in providing integrated market access and logistics services. And our key industries, as you would have seen, are first and foremost across the African continent being healthcare and consumer, because these are not just the largest growth industries in Africa, but it's really those industries that are the most defensive and the most resilient, especially when you're operating in key and risky markets. We are a JSE listed company in South Africa. Some of you hopefully may have shares in our business. And I think for us, as we've evolved over the years, we've become a business that's not only focusing on delivering returns and profits to our shareholders, but we've really started to put emphasis on other key components of our business. ESG is certainly one of them. And, we'd like to believe that we are a business that doesn't just say that we're focusing on people and planet in addition to profit, but that we really are starting to live those values. This very quickly shows you a map of our geographic footprint. And yes, whilst we do have significant exposure in the likes of Europe and the UK, as you can see from the map and the footprint, we are largely an African company. So just some external context that I alluded to earlier. I mean, many of us know, and I said it earlier, that ESG is becoming the new buzzword. But the reality is it is going mainstream. And if you look at all the key stakeholder audiences across the world, maybe just starting with the investor groups. A few years ago, Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, which is one of the largest fund managers in the world, started to put pressure on a lot of the companies that they invested in globally to look more holistically in the way that they run their businesses. And Larry Fink clearly identified that sustainability was key to value creation and tangibly wanted to see what the companies that they were investing in were doing in the ESG space. And along with that, we started to see more and more fund managers coming to the party. As many of you know, as part of their key investment criteria now, a company will not be investable if you don't have the right ESG practices and processes in place. And, we're at a point now where, in addition to, providing feedback on ESG to your investors, there are ratings agencies that are coming to the party and are basically requiring businesses to comply with various ESG standards and processes globally in order to issue recommendations on those businesses, and your investors look at those recommendations. But in addition to, the investor group, and I think an interesting stat is that despite COVID in 2020, ESG was the largest asset class that showed an inflow of about $250 in terms of tradability on the stock exchanges across the globe. And that was in a COVID year. So that just shows you that the potential for ESG in an investor space is phenomenal. And it was probably the few asset classes that actually showed an inflow in the COVID 2020 year. But in addition to that, we look at things like our clients and our principals and our customers. I mean, Imperial's operating in 26 countries, as I mentioned, and we're working with some of the largest multinationals in the world. And ESG, again, is not just a nice to have, but it gives us a core competitive advantage over some of our peers that aren't doing the right things in that space or aren't doing as much in that space. If you look at just the tender processes, for example, many of our multinationals require us to be able to entrench and show them progress against certain ESG practices, particularly in the social and environmental space. So again, coming back to, it's not just a nice to have. Businesses that don't do it will not remain in business in a few years from now. And then, of course, as I said to you, people, especially the younger generation, want to work for corporates who are socially responsible. It's not, it's a very attractive employee value proposition point. And it's something that we have to all start entrenching within our business practices and within our change management processes and as part of our value cases and value propositions in business. If you look at Imperial's ESG journey, as I mentioned earlier, we focus particularly on the sustainability aspect for many years. And, and I would like to really commend one of my colleagues, a gentleman by the name of Rafiq Sharfuddin, who single-handedly took sustainability, as a passion that he had, and he really drove this within Imperial for many years. And it originally started off as just a financial reporting role, but together with the support of the business, if you look at the progress that Imperial's made in the 17-year journey, It was really due to somebody's vision that had a passion for this and started to put a lot of pressure on business to do the right thing. But as Imperial unbundled the motor entity, and we had a fundamental shift in management, we really started to put focus on our ESG function from 2019 under new leadership. It was the first time that Imperial included ESG as a pillar of its business strategy, where management at all levels would be incentivized on it. And again, it wasn't just a nice to have or tick box approach within business. And in addition to that, we really started to look more holistically at the way in which the world was changing and what could we do more proactively rather than reactively. And, we started to become members of the UN Global Impact, for example, the Women Empowerment Principles. We started to receive favorable ratings and recognition from various agencies, which to me is just the outcome of being seen as a business that is starting to do the right thing. And very proudly, we decided that we were going to make a fundamental shift now that ESG is included in our strategy to develop our ESG capability. And, at the end of last year, we also appointed one of South Africa's ESG heavyweights, Lauren Rota, to lead our function together with Rafiq and myself as the executive head responsible for it, to make sure that ESG is given the right level of attention. And it is, because we've gone a step further in including it as part of our governance processes, as part of our social and ethics board committee that endorses our strategy, by creating an ESG and CSI subcommittee within business so that ESG can be top of mind in all our business practices. So there's a lot that Imperial's done. And I think the purpose of the next slide is just to show you that as a pillar of our strategy, you can see that integrating environmental, social, and governance into our business and daily business practice is something that is top of mind across our business, and that will be tracked and measured. So I think from that, with that as context in terms of Imperial's journey, I just want to take you very quickly through how we've decided, together with strong support of the For Excellence team, to develop a very solid ESG strategy. And in the past, as I've mentioned, it was very fragmented. We did things in piecemeal. But, I think it was about time that we started to focus the business, because as Dr. Elaine said up front, ESG can be very daunting. There's a lot of components attached to it. Your stakeholders have various requirements, and especially with the business as complex as Imperial in terms of the number of markets that we operate in, and where local relevance is critical to the success of our businesses, we have a lot of pressure to be many things to many stakeholders, but you can't be. And I think, from developing an ESG strategy perspective, the starting point for us wasn't just our purpose, but was to co-create a strategy, with the ESG team and the rest of our business, so that we could agree upfront what areas we would focus on going forward from a time, investment, resource perspective, and what elements of ESG would make a tangible difference to us as a sustainable company, and what ESG components specifically we could track and measure in order to add or to create value for our stakeholders. And the first step of that was really to set up workshops. We decided to take a top-down approach, starting off at the highest leadership in the business, getting their buy-in and alignment, and getting them to understand what ESG really is, and to look at the gaps within their various businesses. So we had intensive workshops that involved all our business leaders as well as the functional heads. From there on, we went into, and I might add here to Elaine's point up front, For Excellence facilitated this for us in a very simplistic format, using very high and exciting and effective tech and tools. And again, to say that these workshops was facilitated in a completely virtual format, which was the first for Imperial, but the outcome and the successful outcome of it was very effective. Following on from that, those workshops, this ESG team together with For Excellence basically analyzed the outcome from the various workshops, tried to put together very succinctly some of the practical initiatives and potential targets. And from there on, we aligned again with business and follow-up meetings. Alignment is key in getting business to be part of this journey. And then, of course, it needs to be endorsed at the highest levels of the organization. So we then presented it to the Group Executive Committee, of which I serve on. Following on from that, we took it to the Social and Ethics Board Committee that's responsible for ESG. And proudly tomorrow, we will be taking it to the Imperial Board for approval and endorsement so that we can hold ourselves accountable at the highest levels of the business and continue to feed back to our shareholders and other stakeholder groups. And then the real work starts, guys. Then it's really about implementation of the strategy and, most importantly, change management and how we go about embedding ESG into every level of the business. Very high level, our strategy development content was about the external landscape, looking at the external trends that I spoke about earlier. What are your peers doing? What is global best practice? Are we going to align to the likes of the Paris Agreement, which is, the ways in which the world is moving? And then looking at your internal landscape, which Elaine spoke a lot about earlier, is to look at our SWOT analysis. Already importantly, using the base that you have and the great work that businesses have already done, and just analyzing where those gaps are and where there's opportunities that can come from that, both from a commercial and strategic perspective. And then translating that SWOT analysis to a maturity assessment, considering what your stakeholders are also telling you are key for them in an ESG space. And then taking all of that content and really putting it into your key themes for your strategy, then to use it to define what your approach to ESG is going to be, what your aspiration is going to be, and most importantly, the execution phase, which is really about, it's great to have initiatives and it's great to identify what we need to do as a business, but what are our targets? How can we tangibly measure this? Because if you can't tangibly measure something, you're not going to be able to hold yourself to account in terms of achieving those. And more, all our stakeholder groups are requiring us to be bold about our targets, to be able to communicate those, not just internally, but externally, so that, management and people at all levels can be tracked and can be incentivized and can be remunerated accordingly. And, there's various different components of ESG now in that strategy development process. And ultimately, it boils down to targets and how we can achieve those. Again, I think I spoke about this and I am conscious of time. Is that this shows you our very top-down approach that we've taken as Imperial, and our outcome was really, from having many workshops, many engagements, what we wanted to see was a strategy on a page for Imperial Group, as you can see, and then also going down to business level to look at our key businesses and how their ESG strategy, targets, and initiatives cascade upwards into the overall group picture. And then one step further than that is that every operating company who are or could be in different jurisdictions, how do their objectives, which are about local relevance, cascade upwards into the broader picture? And what we decided to use, and I can't share our strategy with you in more detail, unfortunately, until it's been approved by the board, but effectively we looked at some key components because, again, you can't be everything to everyone. And what we chose to focus on was to look at the elements that underpin the UN Global Compact, or in some instances, you could also align to Sustainable Development Goals, as many of you might be looking at. And, these are some of the key areas that our strategy chooses to focus on. And being a logistics company, sustainable environment and minimizing our impact on the environment is key. So looking at how we could certainly move towards a zero carbon aspiration in time, and together with that, looking at our energy consumption, our climate change policy, looking at opportunities for effective waste management, recycling, water usage, and a lot of opportunity can be tangible here where, you could also look at commercial benefits and partnerships, and you don't always have to undertake your ESG strategy and initiatives alone. The social element is critical because it's about your people, it's about your communities, and it's a bit more than just ticking the boxes in terms of the various charters and the codes. So here, we've been very implicit about diversity, health and safety. COVID has shown us your employees at the top of the workforce, and they should come first. Your talent pipeline, It's about being inclusive. It's about being relevant. It's about making an impact. And I think, very importantly for business that's listed and that's doing business in Africa, governance should always be top of mind, because it's not just a priority for us as a business, but it's also a top priority for many of our multinationals and our investors. So, these are some of the elements we chose to focus on. I did speak about the ESG strategy and what it would require in a lot of detail up front, but it's really, the various aspects that we should be focusing on is about continuous improvement. The reporting side is one aspect of it, but to be able to really track and monitor and be transparent about your journey. And don't underestimate the impact of digital and, digital tools and digital and IT in this process, because critically, digital could be a critical tool in terms of helping you to achieve many of your ESG objectives and targets, in addition to helping you monitor and track it. And I think in terms of the embedding enablers, it is about setting the scene at the top, creating a culture within the business about putting ESG at top of mind. It's not an or in a business anymore, it's an and. So just the way we implement and execute on your HR or people and culture objectives, ESG should be seen in an additional light. We spoke about governance. It's about training and awareness. It's about integrating risk management. And, ESG is that risk if you don't do it properly. Some of our learnings through our co-creation of our strategy process was really about getting buy-in and alignment, taking your people on the journey, using leadership to help you shape the outcomes, and don't just, from an ESG functional perspective, try to cascade ideas and thoughts into business without getting that alignment up front. It is about the targets. It's nice to have when you talk about ESG and we all need to do this and we all need to know what we need to do. But when you really start to show targets and ask business for commitment to these targets, it's really where the rubber hits the road. And that's where the real debate comes in. So that's, so collaboration and discussion and then planning is integral to the success of your strategy. And as I said earlier, keep it as top of mind in everything that we all do and take our people on our journey. So in conclusion, just in the interest of time, I want to leave you with this very powerful quote, and it's where I started off, is that, in Harvard Business School, also acknowledged ESG as being critical. In today's ever-evolving world, debating whether or not to incorporate sustainability in your business strategy is no longer an option. Considering a values-driven approach when developing business strategies is vital to long-term success, and if I may add, to long-term value creation and sustainability of your business. So I'm going to leave it there, Elaine, and hopefully I've managed to share enough for the audience to use in strategy development around ESG going forward. And you're still on mute, Elaine.
Sorry. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Isha. This was really, really informative. So thank you for your time and for sharing this with us. And good luck with your board meeting tomorrow. I'm sure it is going to go very well. Yes. So just one question from my side. What would you foresee as the biggest challenge for you to implement this strategy in Imperial?
Yeah, thanks for that, Elaine. I think the biggest strategy or the biggest challenge for us will really be the change management process. Because, I think whilst at the various leadership levels, we're really starting to acknowledge and understand the importance of ESG. Having a business that employs over 25,000 people in 26 countries, the only way that your strategy is going to be successful is if every, or close to every one of your employees at the coalface of your business start to live and breathe ESG. Because, a lot of our targets are premised on the fact that our businesses are compliant and are able to achieve the targets we've set. So, that doesn't happen at one or two levels of the organization. So I think, starting off this journey, that change management process and taking our people along with us and changing the mindset to put ESG at the forefront of what we all do every day is probably going to be one of the biggest challenges we have to overcome right at the start of our journey.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that. Just one question from Marinda Swart, also Director for Excellence. Do you have a implementation timeline to implement the strategy? Is there a specific period that you would like to implement it in?
Yeah, sure. So I think ESG is a journey. If you look at the strategy we've come up with now, I think it's really going to be kicking off the moment we get the go-ahead from the board. But effectively, a lot of those initiatives are already in progress. I think part of this journey, though, the strategy is really going to guide us towards our longer-term targets. And key for us is to make sure that we always keep the end goal in sight. And so our effectively our journey, our ESG strategy looks out broadly to a 2030 to 2050 target for certain initiatives, and the implementation plan is really going to now kick off, for now, within now and the next 5 years, and looking realistically at how that strategy and those plans will get us effectively to the 2030 and 2050 targets. So it's get go from the start.
Great, thank you. Okay, then just another question here. One of our students are saying, currently in most companies, CSR, corporate social responsibility, is implemented only when all the shareholders and investments production are done. Do you have some solutions in order to reduce the strategy and move on to a better CSR implementation?
Yeah, so we also had a similar challenge up front, especially when our businesses, were handling CSI or CSR only to tick particular boxes within their businesses. So what we then decided to do about 2 years ago was to look at your business or organization holistically, to look at what are the biggest value adds that you can make to your communities as a business, and look at it more from a strategic perspective rather than we have to do this and let's just throw money towards an initiative. And we actually put together a particular CSI strategy that says, from a strategic perspective, these are the components that we as Imperial want to invest in. These are the categories. And we chose those categories based on, the industries in which we operate. So, healthcare, consumer, skills development, education, road safety, effectively. And those then became the focal areas of which all our CSI initiatives are concentrated. And everyone is then aligned to that policy within business. And through our CSI and ESG committee, all CSI proposals come to that committee, who then ensures that we very stringently meet the criteria before we invest in a project. And the second point is that when we invest in a project, it's not just a monetary investment. We want to, from a resource perspective, try to add value. And I think if you look at CSI from a strategic perspective, rather than just a tick box perspective, I think it really starts to ensure that as a business, your investment starts to be more sustainable and makes a more tangible, makes more tangible sense for the communities in which you're investing, rather than a one-hit wonder. So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay. Thank you so much, Isha. It's really an honor for us to be part of this journey with you. I see we've got 4 minutes left, so I quickly want to just move through to our Mentimeter. Hopefully you've already downloaded that. And then if we can just quickly run through a few questions that we would like to ask to our participants. I'm just going to share my Mentimeter here. While I'm busy with this, you can read the consent, and if you can give us a thumbs up if you are happy to continue with this, then we can quickly continue. Okay, I see I've got 44 thumbs ups already. So yes, thank you for that. Okay, so the first question we would like to ask is, which sustainability quote do you like most? There's a quote from Aaron Wood: sustainability is treating ourselves and our environment if we are to live on this earth forever. Jochen Zeit said, sustainability is no longer about doing less harm, it's about doing more good. And Matthew Fox said, sustainability is another word for justice. For what is just is sustainable, and what is unjust is not. Okay, you will have time to go through the questions at your own pace, but just for the timing that we've got left, I'm going to continue to the next question. What do you foresee as the biggest challenge organizations face in implementing sustainable solutions? Limited resources, capital investment, planning, time, changing mindsets. Yeah, that's also what Isha said about we will have to go into our organizations and we'll need to change everyone's mindset around sustainability. Trying to consider CSR issues and financial results, reducing time for planning, design, shareholder returns. Okay, thank you for that. What do you see as the top 3 things organizations need to focus on to move towards a sustainable future? There's a few things listed there: create awareness, change perspectives, transform your current business models, collaborate more, be future conscious, implement incremental changes in business, appoint change agents, include sustainability as part of your business strategy, and challenge the status quo and redesign the way we work. Okay. Yeah, so what's coming out here is include sustainability as part of your business strategy. And Isha, I think at Imperial, that's something that they have done very well to date. And then also creating that awareness and change perspectives, especially when you have to implement the strategy in your organization. So you need to take everyone on the journey with you. Thank you. And then just finally, provide one short phrase which summarizes today's discussion for you. Future, informative, ESG in action, concrete implementation. Interesting. It's not just about the PowerPoint. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, insightful, interesting. We have to act today, and we need to get that alignment as well. Thank you very much. Innocent, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Elaine. And everyone, this brings us to the end of our today's webinar. Dr. Isham Singh, we'd like to thank you very much for your time and also for taking us through Imperial ESG journey. So we're looking forward to more other lovely things coming from you guys. But we thank you so much for your time. So also we'd like to thank everyone who could make it today, participants, and some people behind the scene who worked very hard to ensure that this webinar was a success. So probably you're wondering what's next. So now we have a next coming webinar. In that one, we will be hosting Neil Franklin from AECI. So we hope you can join. So the best way to do that is to just keep on following us on LinkedIn and check the updates on the dates and the time. So now you're probably thinking, so how do we collaborate or co-create the sustainability with For Excellence? Well, there's a way you can reach us on www.forexcellence.solutions, but there's also a lady right on your screen, Marinda Swart. You can drop an email anytime, info@forexcellence.solutions. For now, we'd like to say thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe and keep well.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.